Hi. Hi everyone. My name is Leonard. I'm the founder and CEO of Ilytics, and we specialize in AI powered solutions for industrial operations monitoring, especially for safety and productivity. So I'll start with maybe a story about Waldo. So for those of you who are familiar with him, he's actually a cartoon character that normally wears very bright colored clothes, similar to reflective vests. And our goal is always to try and find him amongst the crowd. So normally there will be a kind of a book, and we'll need to look for him through all the different scenarios or situations. And this can be really tied back or related to a construction site, or maybe even any kind of manufacturing or industrial facility, right? But it's still very hard to find him until we really look very, very closely. And then maybe by then it might be too late, or we probably missed many different instances of potential hazards or things like that. So the question is, do we really know what is happening at the construction site, especially when no one is looking? And the question is, as of today, even though CCTVs are still really cheap, they may not be everywhere. But for those sites that already have CCTVs deployed, there are still people staring or having to sit there the whole day to look at these multiple screens, and can be up to as many as 20 to 30 screens at one go. But really, how effective is this? So that kind of boils back down to what we are trying to do here by ensuring that we can make any camera at the construction site or any industrial sector or turn it into a smart camera. And even though cameras have their limitations in terms of vision, it's almost impossible to try and have 100% coverage of the whole location. It's always more advisable to focus on high risk work areas. And these common high risk work areas are always, for example, lifting at height or working at height, machinery works, and any kind of lifting works. So for video analytics, the purpose of video analytics, for example, if let's say, unfortunately, if a vehicle reverses into that person at that very point in time, then this tech is not the one to really save that worker in that situation. But a lot of this and the purpose of video analytics is more for behavioral change, and it can be easily tied back to how we view speeding cameras or speeding systems in our world today. I'm also one of these culprits as well. So, for example, let's say if we're driving 110 kilometers on the road, even though the road is meant only for 90 kilometers speed limit, right? And then once I look at the sign, and I might suddenly slow down. I might probably start to look for the camera. But let's say once I found the camera, then I'll really slow down until I reach 90 kilometers per hour, so I don't get a speeding ticket. But some people would still try their luck because maybe they did not see the camera, maybe they thought it's a dummy camera, and they would continue to speed. But the moment the system captures the image and the video and the license plate, then of course the next thing we'll get is a fine. Right? So this can be tied really closely back to how we have observed the impact of our solution in the deployed locations. And the main thing here is to really automate a lot of the monitoring of hazardous operations or productivity um, out in the field, right? So we tap into any existing camera, regardless of the brand, as long as they are IP cameras. The AI then runs in real time to analyze the CCTV feeds, and then once any anomaly or items of interest or scenarios of interest are detected, it would send out two things. One is a mobile real-time alert, and another one to our web dashboard as well. And that's where the site teams or the safety teams will start to investigate and follow up. So a bit of background about analytics. We actually started in 2018, did a 2 years of research with NUS in Singapore and HDB. HDB is the largest residential developer in Singapore, to look into advanced video analytics solutions for harsh environments such as construction. As of today, we have more than 30 active deployments across the country in Singapore and in Hong Kong, in construction, military, as well as manufacturing. So the reason why we want to really do this is because video analytics itself is not a new technology. It's been used in many applications for security, for retail, for people counting, facial recognition, license plate, but it has not really been used in a much tougher environment, such as construction, where it's outdoors. It's a lot more dynamic. Objects are really smaller, and connectivity may not be so good. So for us, what we have done is that we have actually pre-built a lot of the modules that I would say can cover about 80 to 90% of the common high-risk safety work that normally happens at site, right? So if you think about it, work at height, so workers near open edges, workers going too close to operating machinery, or standing under any kind of suspended or lifted loads, right? Or we can do the simple use cases as well, like for example, PPE detection. One of the important things to take note is that even though we can detect, there are a lot of different parameters and configurations that allow end users to really fine tune what they need for their own operations. For example, they can adjust the size of the radius for an excavator and a different radius for a forklift, right? Because the forklift is a lot smaller than the excavator in terms of the danger radius. On top of that, they can also have many different timers, such as how many seconds the workers are allowed to be, let's say, standing under the load. Is it 0 seconds? Is it 1 second before triggering an alert? So beyond that, we are also looking at other scenarios, such as loitering or unattended objects or housekeeping that are left behind, smoke and fire, or even overcrowding. We can also look at things like color-based detection. So for example, we can say that certain colored vests are not allowed at certain regions. Danger areas is something a bit more manual. You can use tool to draw it, to understand temporary, or to set temporary exclusion zones and remove them as and when you need. Face mask, I think, not so required nowadays, as well as worker congregation or safe distancing. But beyond humans, we can also look at vehicles, such as for traffic jam, illegal parking, speeding, or even moving in the wrong direction. So I'd like to reiterate that again, that everything you see so far is handled on the software side. So we don't need any fancy cameras. Any 2 megapixel or 720p camera, IP camera would do. Beyond that, we can also run things like license plate detection. We can track the vehicles going in and out of the site, the duration that they are at the site, and we have this concept of linking 2 cameras together. So you might have one camera looking at the license plate, and you have another camera looking at the contents of the tipper truck or of the lorry, so that in case of the event that bad soil is being bring out of the site, or people are maybe stealing some materials, you have a track record of this. On top of that, we can also do facial recognition. Again, these are not gantry based cameras. These are just on the ceiling or the walls. You can place these normally at different critical areas or choke points, or restricted access areas around the site. So the thing that really makes our solution stand out and is to do a lot better in environments like construction than any video analytics company out there, 4 key things. So the first is actually the data set, right? So construction data set there's almost no online data set, which is important for any baseline AI application, right? So for us, we actually have the largest number of construction data set, at least in Singapore, that we have collected over 3 years. And this helps a lot in terms of the robustness of our AI to operate in many different kinds of environments or situations. The second thing is actually something we have developed. It's a patented technology to actually convert 2D scenes to 3D without sensors or without multiple cameras. So any single normal camera can actually do this scene conversion that allows us to have a lot more complex use cases, but also with higher accuracy without needing the expensive cost of getting like LiDAR sensors and things like that. The third thing is also for construction. You may have an AI model that works 99% of the time, or it's 99% precision or recall or accuracy. But the moment you bring it out into the field, maybe it drops to 60, because of weather conditions, low frame rate, poor connectivity, long range. Um, so for us, we actually have a lot of systems and I would say tech around the processing part to actually eliminate a lot of these issues that we will face, so that the accuracy of the AI model largely still retains even in this type of harsh environments. The last thing is also for very flexible implementation. And this is needed in environments like this because, for example, let's say, if a worker has maybe just wants to scratch his head and he takes off his hard hat maybe for just 5 seconds, you wouldn't really want to trigger an alert for that, right? You can imagine the number of spam alerts you will get in the mobile phone or through the video analytics system. So for us, we have a lot of timers in place to allow you to really focus on what you need. And we can also combine different use cases to help you achieve what you really want to monitor. So to kind of end off and close off, I think for those people who are familiar with video analytics, right, license plate, facial recognition, no access, I think that's kind of very prominent in the world already today. But we need kind of more advanced capabilities to operate in these type of environments, and that's what we are really trying to bring here. Not only for construction or industrial industries, right? So think of 3D projection, pipelines, custom scenario pipelines, multi-object long range detection with low spec, as well as tracking or mapping. So now I'll kind of come into how end users actually use the system and how they benefit from it. So whenever a real-time alert is sent to the team, they will normally assess it whether they need to stop work immediately, whether it's not so critical and they can communicate with the subcontractor or the worker later in the day, or maybe in their toolbox or safety meetings, right? So throughout this process and reinforcement loop, the customers have actually noticed 7x increase in hazard detected at site. They are 20% more efficient because now they can actually really focus on the key um, critical high risk alerts that are detected while they do the manual inspection for the areas where cameras are not really covered. And this also allows 24 by 7 monitoring of all the operations at site as well. In terms of the outcomes, the main one would be really about assessing and subcontractor performance. Sometimes they even use the information for claims, for disputes. They have reduced their manual monitoring, like we saw earlier, with the person sitting in front of the monitor. They use this information for further onboarding, retraining of the workers going in and out of the site. They can identify many different types of risks early on, and ultimately all this helps to improve the operational culture at the site. So on top of the real-time alerts, we also have a web dashboard that is really more for the reporting aspect. So you can think about it as downloading of reports, analyzing trends, looking at alert images, commenting on them, tagging them, closing the loop, or even adjusting various settings or regions that the end user needs in order to make sure that the system is operational and the system helps them automate as much as possible any kind of reporting or follow-up process. And the benefits of the system, on top of that, there are certain trends that we can see for contractors who actively enforce certain things or follow up the alerts with their site team. We actually notice a very obvious downtrend in terms of number of alerts as well as a number of non-compliances, right? Because again, back to the previous analogy I gave on the traffic speeding system, this is very much similar. It's more of a habitual thing. The workers need to get used to it. The subcontractors need to get used to it. But ultimately, it's for everyone's safety and betterment as well as efficiency. And for now, we can kind of zoom into, I would say, a case study. So this project actually is called the Jurong Innovation District in Singapore. It's one of the largest projects ongoing now in the country to develop the next generation of advanced manufacturing capabilities here in Singapore. So yes, almost 92 cameras deployed. It's a huge site, and it has and the site team has also significant time savings through using this system, right? So before deploying the system, they actually monitor CCTVs about 3 hours a week, and they do this for two personnel. And most of the time, when they discover hazards, they estimate that they can only really, by chance or by their manual site, work or inspection, find 30% of it, right? So a lot of it is still very manual, and it relies on them to actually catch them in the act at there and then. After they have deployed the system, the monitoring reduced down to zero point 0.5 a week. Just one personnel will be enough, and they have increased the detection of hazards up to 94%, which is a lot. Not only that, it automates a lot of this monitoring. They have the video clip now that gives them a lot more context of the alerts, and they can really focus on this hazardous scenario with evidence to discuss, and so there is not really a dispute on whether this really happened or not. And ultimately, these are some of the testimonial and feedback from the project team itself. So again, tying it back to the very first point that I mentioned in this presentation on Waldo, it helps the AI can really help the site teams to find Waldo a bit easier. Our system itself, the accuracy is really very high for at least for construction industry. So we can deploy systems in really less than 2 weeks. Um, the reporting is a lot of the reporting are automated now. All they need to do is to put their comments, tag the alerts, and then they can generate reports, or they can wait for the automated report every week or every month. This also helps them to build a database of all the different safety infringements and non-compliances at the site. So they use it a lot again for the retraining of the workers or general safety onboarding. And on top of that, the last tool is really that there's a lot of settings for them to adjust that suits their needs for their operations, as well as the system itself is very, very easy to use, quick to deploy, and it can be brought from one side to the other very quickly. So that comes to the end of my sharing today. Our hope is that with this technology, and hopefully for more adoption of this type of technology, not only us but in general across industrial sectors, that it can be a much safer and also more productive environment for everyone. For those who have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time for a chat. Thank you.